Hello, my name is Viet Chen, Product Manager at Avenue Business Solution. In this tutorial, I'm going to give you a quick introduction on how to use the automation scripting framework in Maximo 7.6. You can open the automation script application under the menu System Configuration, Platform Configuration. So in order to create a new script, you can click select action, more action, and then create script. You can see here we can create a script with many different launch point, object, attribute, action, and so on. For the object launch point, we can create a script to modify Maximo behavior when there is a change to the object, like when we save the object or update it. With the attribute launch point, we can trigger a script when there is a change to the attributes, like when we validate the field, for example. Action launch point can be used with workflow or escalation. Similarly, custom condition launch point can be used with workflow or escalation or many other places. And we can write script to process or to validate data coming in or out of integration framework as well. In this tutorial, I'm going to give a quick introduction and example on how to use the field launch point like object launch point, attribute, and action launch point. So let's go back to our application. Let's say if we have an application in the purchasing module, purchase requisition, for example. Let's say if we have a purchase requisition and our client wants to change the application behavior so that every time they change the quantity field or the unit cost field, it will calculate the total cost field and put it in the remark field with the label USD after that. So in order to do that, we can achieve with the attribute launch point. So here we have to analyze the requirement asking us to make sure that we process and put a value into the remark field. So this remark field is an output data field, and the input will be taken from the quantity and the unit cost field. So these will be two input data attributes. We will want to recalculate and display a new label every time we change data in the quantity or the unit cost field. So we want to trigger the script both when there is a change in the quantity and unit cost. So I will do that with the attribute launch point. I'm going to create an attribute launch point script. First of all, I will create the launch point related to the quantity field. Here I will have to select the object on which the fields is in. So here I have to select the PR line object, and I will put the order quantity field in here. In the event section, I will have to choose validate, meaning that after I enter data into the field or change it, and when I leave the field, Maximo will validate data enter. So in this case, it will also trigger the script, and I will click next. Here I put down the name of the script and choose the language for the script. In this case, I leave it default as Python. We can choose many different type of programming language in here. Now you can see we can change to Python or using JavaScript. Now here in the variable table, I will have to define two input variable and one output variable as mentioned earlier. The first input variable would be the order quantity field. So here I put the variable name. I will choose it as an input variable. and I will bind it to the order quantity attribute of the PLI object. Then I will add another input attribute for the unit cost. And bind it to the unit cost field of the PLI object. Next, I want to create the output variable, which is a remark field. For the variable type, I will choose it as an output and bind it to the remark field. For the output variable, or the in and out, which is both an input and output variable, we will have a different option here. Override meaning that a new value will override existing value. Suppress validation means that it will not validate the validity of the data written into the fields. For example, if the fields had a domain which restrict only a few values, then in this case, if we choose suppress validation, it will surpass and ignore that validation of the domain. Similarly, suppress access control means it will ignore any security option related to the fields, just like if the field is read only, it will still allow the program to write information into the field. Suppress action meaning that it will not do any further action. For example, if the field is a trigger for another automation script, if we choose suppress action, then it will not trigger that automation script on that field. Okay, so I will choose next, and I will get into this screen to write my script. First, I will calculate the total cost. Then I will write down the input into the remark variable. And click on create to finish the creation process. Okay, so now I have created my first script. You can see here we have the script. You can click on it to see the information within. So this is the code on the variable types is two input and one output variables that we have with the script. For the launch point, currently we only have one launch point, the order quantity, and with the launch point we assign this field into the variable. So in this case, because we only have one launch point, the script will only be triggered when we change value of the order quantity field. I will quickly test to see if my script is working right now. So one of the tricks here is I will leave the screen, the automation script screen here on this browser, and open another browser to open another session to test the script. Right, so every time I change the quantity or the quantity field, it will multiply the quantity with the unit cost and put the label here in the remark field as expected. So now what I want to do is the same behavior will happen when I change the unit cost field as well. Currently it doesn't work. When I change the value of the unit cost field, it doesn't recalculate the remark field. Because I have only created a launch point for the quantity field but haven't created launch point for the unit cost field, I have to do that as well. So I will go back here. So we already have the same script What we have to do is to create a new launch point and assign it to the script. We can do it by doing create and select attribute launch point, or we can open the existing one and add a new launch point here. Or actually I didn't remember it correctly. We couldn't add the launch point here, so we have to go back to the menu and create the launch point from here. I will choose a new launch point, which is the unit cost field running on the PR line table with the attribute unit cost. Now what I'm doing here is I will not create a new script and have to write the code again, but I will choose the existing script. Assign the attribute to the new launch point. So in this case, because I'm operating on the same object, so the attribute to be bind will be the same. Okay, so I have finished creating a new launch point. We can double check by click on the script and open the launch point tab. Now we can test our new launch point by going back to the previous application. Because I have created a new launch point, normally when I modify the script, the change will take effect immediately. But because I have created a new launch point, I have to reopen the application for the change to take effect. So you can see when I change the unit cost field, it also executes the script and update a new value to the remark field. Next, I'm going to quickly introduce about the object launch point. So first, let's come up with some requirement. Let's say in the item master application. Let's say if the client wants every time I change the commodity group and save the object, when the action we save the object, we want to combine the description of the commodity group into the item's description. We can achieve that with the object launch point. I'm going to create a new object launch point. I will put any name to the launch point and select the item object. With the object event condition, I can create a filter to make sure the script only executed when the event condition is met. For example, I only want to trigger the script for the item with status in waiting for approval, for example, or in pending status. Then I can put status equal pending here. But then again, this is a very simple sample, so I will leave it blank so that it will execute on any items. Now here for the events, I will choose save. We have different events to trigger the script. I will simply choose save. So when I click on the save button, and here I will select when I add a new item or even when I update the item, the script will be executed. I will choose to create a new script and click next. Enter a name for the script. Then click next. In this case, I don't want to define any variable because I want to show you how to get and write information directly into the MBO object. Right. So in this case, first of all, I want to get information from the commodity group description. So what I have to do is I have to retrieve that object from relationship of the item object. So because this script running on the item object, I can get the same record open by having the variable MBO, and then I will get the data set of the commodity group relationship by using get MBO set. Then I can get the whole MBO set. In this case, I want to get the first and the only record reference. So I will get the first one. And then retrieve the description field. And assign it to a new variable. For the current item description, and now I want to write the combined description back to the same item object, so I can do it with the set value method. Click on create to finish creating the new script. Let's quickly check to see if our code is working now. You can see every time I click on the save button, it will combine the description of the commodity group into the current description and write back to the description field. Next, I'm going to quickly introduce about the action launch point action launch point script. So with action launch point, we can create a new action and write a customized business rule assigned to that action. So it will work similar to the action created in the action application. This is generally used in the workflow designer application to process certain type of complex requirement. So let's come up with a scenario where we need to use the action script. Going back to the item master application. Let's say if we have a new item and we want to have a workflow, and when it runs, it will modify the description of the item by adding one more note such as important to the description. We can do that using action launch point script. Create new action launch point. Down here I will define the new action created in the action application and assign it to the item object. I will quickly write the code that I want to do. Perhaps this is a specific character, so it won't work, but I will test and see if it works. Now go back to the application that we have. Let's go to the item application. Alright, so what I want to do, because I've created an action, but I want to test if the action can be assigned to a workflow, so I have to create a workflow and then we'll run that workflow on one item. So I have to open the workflow designer application. In here I already have a process on the item object and have defined nothing except for the one behavior that when I click on the workflow to start the process, it will stop the workflow and execute one action. I will select the action here and choose the action that I have just created using the automation script application. So we can see here a new action has been created after we finish creating the script in our automation script application. I will select it and click OK. And now I will have to enable and activate the process. So now let's quickly check to see if our workflow works. Let me quickly see if I have assigned the process to the workflow button. That's what I have. So let's go back to our item master application. Then open any items. Okay, so now I have a new workflow with the action created. I will test it by clicking on the Run Workflow button. So we can see here, because I have two scripts. The first script is when I click on the Run Workflow, it will save the object, so it will combine the commodity group description into the description of the item, which is unexpected behavior. I should have disabled that script earlier to make it less confusing. But our second script we just created is to combine the current description with the word importance, and it had added the word here, so it works as expected. So that is basically the way how we can use to the automation script application to create different script and achieve different customization scenario based on our client requirement. In order to learn more about how to write specific logic, we can refer to the language of the script we want to write, such as Python or Python, by googling around for the syntax. In order to understand more about how we can process different MBO objects, then we can refer to the Java customization, Maximo Java customization blog of Mr. Bruno. This is an excellent blog that provides everything you need to know about the Maximo and customization framework. You can hear, and we have very basic lesson until the intermediate and advanced lesson, so you can learn anything about the framework here. For more detail about the automation scripting framework of Maximo, then we can refer to the standard short document released by IBM, which is automation scripting with Maximo document. This document is a very short document but very comprehensive. It provides everything you need to know about Maximo scripting. So thank you for watching.